Welcome to the end of week chart wrap up. My name's Jodie Knight. You might be familiar with me over on eToro. My name's Jodie Slaney over on there. For some reason, eToro won't let me change my username now I'm married, so we're rolling with it. Let's just hop straight into our first chart, and that's SoFi. First thing we can see when we look at the SoFi chart here, we had a monster move. And a lot of doom and gloom is saying this is a huge pullback, but really, if you know where the key levels are, you know this is nothing to be too worried about. We do have a bit of indecisive action here. Initially, I thought maybe a more substantial pullback to the bull market band would be warranted. It doesn't look like it wants to do that. It looks like price wants to hold around here until earnings. We'll see this throughout this video. A lot of the earnings are coming up in the next week or two. So it's going to be volatile. We can do the technical charts and we can look where the sticking points are, but bear in mind the earnings reports can blow through these technical levels. But it's still good to be aware of, knowing where your adds and trims are if you're going to trade it like that, if you're not just holding as is. The main thing I wanted to point out on here is the RSI has called a lot, so if it does want to run, it can go ahead and do that. Whales are kind of sticking around, but what I like most on the MACDX Plus indicator is we're getting very close to having a golden cross here, which would be very bullish, given that we've had 2 golden bars here. Love it. Overall, it looks pretty bullish on the daily chart. If we can just get the fundamental sentiment to change on this one, I think we're good to go. But earnings are a big ask sometimes, and it depends how the market's feeling about it. Obviously, we've got the risk with the loan book still as well, and credit stretching. So we'll see how earnings gets digested on this one. I do expect it to be a pretty good, consistent beat, though. They've been executing well, and they've not let us down. If we look back here, one miss out of quite a few earnings. Pretty reliable in terms of earnings. If we look on the daily, still crowded on this one. The range just keeps being tight. Unfortunately, I can't spread these measured moves out. They just are what they are. On the weekly, we do see this huge bearish wick here, but I don't think it's as bearish as it seems, because we've got this really good support here. Once we take a look at the options market as well, it's still supporting quite a tight range. But again, on the weekly, pretty neutral on the RSI. We do have a little bit of an oversold here on this initial drop down. But it's had quite a move up off that, so I'm not too concerned. We do still have an active death cross, but there's barely any separation in the moving averages, and another golden bar on the flow. So overall, it's a bit more neutral on the weekly, but I think it just needs a little bit more confirmation to turn into bullish. But I think price has been basing very well here, so I'm excited. Hopefully earnings get the ball rolling on this one. Let's take a look at the open options interest then. On the short-dated contracts, obviously we can see the targets are a little bit higher than where we currently are, but they're going to provide quite a strong resistance. So unless there's an earnings punch through, I think they're probably going to provide a fairly solid wall there to hit our head on. For the actual earnings week, not too much difference. Still range bound by the looks of it, but don't really see much happening unless earnings are something crazy. But if we look a little bit further out to January 25, the market is pricing a lot more upside here, which I love. And I think when we go out again to 26, we see the same thing again. This just confirms really when rate cuts come, the market is generally expecting this company to do well. I did want to also point out that you can actually use Unusual Whales for free to see some of the open options interest. It's not as clear as it is in TradeVision, but it is free. I didn't realize it was free, and I was paying for this tool for a long time. But you can see the overall strike areas. So if you see here, there's a lot more bullish volume in strike and calls than puts, and it also shows you where the most amount of action is time-wise. So early January. So early 25 in January is where a lot of the levels are, and then obviously the year out. So just thought you guys might want to know about that, so you can go check it out, give you a bit more insight into stocks you're holding. Position wise, I did a little bit of trimming on this move up, this nice breakout. Timed it pretty well, really. It wasn't intentional. It wasn't based on any targets that were met or anything. I just needed to do a little bit of housekeeping on my portfolio to rebalance some sizing and free up a little bit of cash going into earnings week, and redistribute into some crypto stuff that needed a bit of bolstering. But other than that, I'm pretty happy with my overall weighting in this one again. So I don't plan any further adjustments on it. Trim wise, I'm still probably not really favoring a take profit trim until we're up, between 10 and 15. Next up, we've got Tesla. Not really too much variance from last week, where it's in the same range as it was last week. It's come back down back to this volume shelf here. It's going to provide fairly strong support, but I do think this is going to break lower before earnings, purely based on, I think people are going to get a bit nervous, a bit twitchy if this earnings here is going to be a bit of a duff. I think the market's still pricing this as a car company, in which case we're going down. But if the market's going to start turning its attention to looking at the energy and stuff like that, I think, there could be some surprises. It all depends on the earnings, like with anything. Could be good, even if it's not as bad as expected. Obviously, we've seen that can be a real good driver for Tesla. That's what's created this initial move here with the car numbers that came out. Price action wise, there's a lot of wicks happening here. Price does not want to get above this level. So that alone makes me think bearish. But if it does fall, I'm going to really want to buy if it falls into this air gap and below this trend line. Tesla loves filling its downside gaps or upside gaps. So if we can get back down to 215 again, that would be amazing. And I will buy some more. Other than that, I do want to hold this as a long-term target, so I'm probably not going to sell out anything. I'll just get back to a 10% weighting and then ride it on up again. We did hit overbought, so I'm not surprised we're selling off here, and the RSI was hot. Tesla can stay quite high on the RSI, but it's always better for it to cool off and build up some energy for another move. If we take a look at the weekly, just adjust the chart a little bit for you. After we had this indecision candle here, we've traded pretty much around that range, so nothing too much here. It still looks fairly bullish, like it wants to backtest this level at the very least. And with the golden cross still expanding and flow at a good level, it's entirely possible that there would be more upside potential on this one. But I think this one, like we just mentioned, is going to be held back based on fundamentals and earnings and stuff like that. Investing it's a weighing game between the technical levels and the fundamentals. Could it go higher based on technicals? Sure, there's a lot of bullish technical sentiment here, but fundamentally, I think price will be getting a little bit ahead of itself. So it's always good to bear that in mind. Looking at the open options interest for Tesla, I think we talked about this last week, that there is a bit of indecision overall in the week preceding earnings. It looks like people thought it would go higher, so they wanted to capture that. But if we take a look at next week, absolutely falls off a cliff. Hardly anyone in the market expects this to be a good earnings report by the looks of it, which confirms what we thought looking at the chart. But those that do think it's going to be good, expecting a nice solid wall above 300. So if we do have a bullish move, there's your upside top there, $300, and your low side. I mean, I don't think it's going to get to this low side, but if it does, amazing news. I will probably jiggle some stuff around and make sure I'm still at a 10% weighting for that, because that is a gift price and I would love to buy at that again. Just to quickly show you on Unusual Whale as well. This is the Tesla strike area. So, I mean, it's pretty dang busy. There's a lot of people looking at this. So any moves will probably be exaggerated as people want to get in and out, take profits, and then reinvest and whatnot. Moving on. Honestly, I'm just looking at my core positions today and I think, I'm invested in the stocks everyone hates, but I love it. That's clearly where I see the opportunity. So maybe I should just make that the whole identity of my investing strategy. But anyway, let's get looking at PayPal. We did have a nice little breakout here. I was really glad to see us break above this trend line, this black line here, and a nice back test here. We did close below it slightly, but the wick up action here from the volume shelf makes me think it's likely going to want to stay higher than that, provided the macro behaves itself. Obviously, we've got escalations of war and assassination attempts all kicking off, so very eventful in the macro these days. Technical levels, though, we are still under the bull market band, don't really like that, and it's got quite a big air gap to fill here. So I'm hoping really that earnings is going to push us over the bull market band and over this volume shelf, because that will give us a much better launch point to get through this goddamn gap. And the sooner we get out of that, the better, because I'm sick of being under it at this point. Feels like everyone's given up on this one, but I'm still hanging on in there. So hopefully turnarounds do soon, since no one expects it. RSI is neutral. We did get overbought and had the pullback, but that was after a bottom catch, so nothing too concerning here. The blue line here and the red line here, the moving averages for the MACDX Plus, they're converging again. That would result in a golden cross, which would be a very bullish sign. So that'd be nice to see. And obviously we're getting the golden bars here on the flow, still in negative territory, but glad to see that there's some potential that that could turn around. On the weekly, I wish it would just remember how I've done my sizing on these charts, so I didn't have to faff around with it every time. But not too much to report on the weekly chart. Still ranging. I've got a bit of a big wick here that I'm not too keen on, but I don't really see price ever really getting below this 58 level. That would be insane, given the company's putting up better numbers than it did in a long time. So we'll see. The moving averages are coming together, but not at a great clip. Whales are sticking in, but retail's not going away. So weekly looks more neutral bearish, but obviously that could change if we start moving in the other direction and confirm a bullish trend. So we'll have to wait and see. Position wise on this one, I'm not adding to this. I'm already overweight, just holding, probably sticking with my plan not to trim anywhere under this $100 range. Obviously, that's not a hard set in stone thing. If something happens in the company or whatnot, then I am open to changing my targets. But it's a kind of wait and see. I actually think they might do better than I expect, given the new advertising business. I'm very excited to see future numbers in that and see how that's going. Open options interest for PayPal, pretty much what we're seeing on the chart. There's that really good support there at the $60. That doesn't mean we can't go under there. It generally means we might dip under there and whip back up, as that's where a lot of people will be taking profits and whatnot. Same with the upside. A lot of people have strikes in these areas. They will provide a lot of resistance to the upside. Then if we take a look out the week after, I think that's where earnings are. Let me just check that though, because I'm not sure off the top of my head. Earnings are Tuesday the 30th of July, yeah. So, I mean, looks like a few more bearish bets on earnings for PayPal. No surprise, same thing every earnings these days. Nothing higher, I don't think. No. However, if we look out to January 25, this opens right up. People are making bets for the future of PayPal, and they are bullish bets, which I love to see. So a huge amount at 145, 140. I'm not sure that's too realistic for 2025, but stranger things have happened. If we look out to 2026, we're seeing pretty much the same thing. For some reason, it doesn't show me higher than this on the 2026 one, which is a bit annoying, but I imagine it's not that dissimilar. Big picture though, long-term bullish for PayPal. Some of those 2025 calls are probably legacy, but that doesn't really concern me. People are still in them, so they obviously see some upside potential to make up some of those losses. Last company up, we've got CleanSpark. Obviously, we've got Bitcoin after this, so make sure to stick around. And if you want to see the actual write-ups of these videos, you can go to my website at www.thecraftytrader.com. There's probably a little bit more detail on there. I've tried to get as much content as fast as I can in this video, but for a little more in-depth and to be reminded of the numbers, you can go check it out on that website, as well as a write-up from the macro wrap-up for this week. But looking at this chart, we had a really good pullback here. Did it come back a bit further than people wanted? Yeah, most likely, but the bull market band has given us a nice level of support, and to see the confluence here with this huge volume shelf, love it. Very bullish on this chart. Do I mind if it pulls back down a bit? No, not particularly. There's such strong support here, something fundamentally would have to happen to break this below, and I don't really see that happening now that Germany's out and Bitcoin's doing well. We do have earnings coming for this company soon. Tuesday, the 6th of August. The earnings for this will affect the price, not like it would a normal company. People tend to want to hear more about the growth plans, debt, that kind of thing with these companies. So they don't traditionally go just from, is it a beat, that kind of stuff. I think when we come to earnings, maybe I'll do a little video just for the earnings on this one so I can talk people through it. Technical level wise, though, we talked about the bull market band and the volume shelf here. There is a very large air gap here. If we did fall below this $15 range, I don't like the look of it. There's this huge gap down here that's going to be a bit of a magnet, which coincidentally lines up with that volume shelf as well, which I wouldn't like. So staying above it is the best. In an ideal world, I'd like to see Bitcoin pump this weekend and then heading into the week get above this $20 range, maybe turn that into support later on as well. That would make me very happy. Targets on this one. I'd like to get to maybe the $30 range. I do have levels higher up here to look at. $32 is my next ideal range, but I probably will start trimming in this area as my weighting will get quite large. I'm not really adding on this one. I did trim out a bit here. Like I said earlier, I've been rebalancing my portfolio, so I've been jiggling some stuff around and consolidating. But if we take a look at the weekly, oh, sorry, let's go back. We didn't look at the indicators, did we? We did hit overbought, and that resulted in this little bit of a pullback here. Now we are getting our moving averages come back together. So if we had a golden cross there, that would be lush. Flows a bit flat though, so maybe we kind of flatten out for a little bit and have a boom up, but it's going to depend a lot on Bitcoin. Then if we go to the weekly, reshape this a bit so it's a bit easier to read. Look at all that confluence. That is a nice shelf. Yes, we're getting a lot of wicks here, but we're getting wicks on both sides. So I think when price pops, it will pop a lot. We shall see. The whales are still in. It's more like people are just waiting to see what happens. We did get a huge volume spike up here, but I don't think we've seen anything yet when it comes to volume. So let's take a look at the open options interest, but we're only going to look at a few weeks away because I've mentioned it a few times. You shouldn't be using options to look or play for miners going anywhere near a year. That's just too far. The Bitcoin cycle might be over then. Stay away, avoid, be safe. There's not a whole lot of bearish bets going on here. We do have a lot of what they seem like low targets, but essentially what they're doing is acting as resistance. As price moves to those strikes, it's likely people will start taking profits, and that will in turn push the price down. But if we look more out to next week, the week after next week, there's a little bit more. Maybe people are thinking there's going to be a bit of a pullback on earnings, but we also see that it applies the same way to the upside. Higher targets of 21. So I mean, it's still pretty range bound. That's not hugely out of bounds for where we're currently trading. So we'll see. Maybe we'll take a quick look at the week after that as well. So 3 weeks away. Targets look like they're getting lifted, and again, very minimal support down here. So it seems like the more time passes, the more bullish people are getting on this. So that all seems pretty good. Let's move on to Bitcoin then. That's the last one up. Bitcoin's had a hell of a move up here. If we measure this from the tippy top of the wick, 26% in a few weeks. Can't be hating that. Can't be complaining that it's looking a bit tired up here. I'd be tired if I'd just run a marathon as well. Sticking between this resistance level and the bull market band on this volume shelf. That's a great area of confluence here. I don't even mind if this pulls back a little, comes back up to this purple trend line and kind of ricochets around here a little bit, builds up a bit of energy, and then presses a breakout, maybe gets a little pullback again. It's always a game of to and fro. I don't want to see things just parabolic go up. I want to be able to, take some risk off, add some more risk, go with the ebb and flow. Helps me feel better psychologically, and it's probably more healthy for the markets. You don't want them to be a rubber band where they just ping up and round. To some degree, we see that in miners. That's essentially how they trade. I think I'd be very stressed out if every stock traded like that constantly. I'd probably have a few more grey hairs. My partner would love it. Other than that, we have the Golden Cross confirmed here, and they are continuing to expand. Love that. The RSI still got room to the upside. Typically, it hits a bit of resistance around the level 90. So there's quite a lot of range there, and flow is still pretty big. This golden bar is not too relevant really, so that was more if you wanted to use it as a buy signal for down here. Ad-wise, I don't hold this directly in my portfolio, but it does affect my miners, and I talk about my miners and my ads and trims with them separately. It's not based on a Bitcoin level. I do hold Bitcoin in cold storage, but I don't really plan to sell that anytime soon, certainly not in this cycle. Maybe in the next cycle or the one after that. Ethereum, I'll probably empty all of that, and the only other thing I hold is Sol. I'll probably sell about half of that, but we'll see. Ethereum, I think, might be getting outclassed a little bit, so I'm not confident I want to hold that for another 4 years, but we'll see. Weekly, this looks hella good. Very nice. I mean, strangely enough, we did get an oversold reading. Granted, it was probably more related to this. But the whales are in, RSI is neutral, flow's neutral. This tells me there could be more upside if they so wished. This bearish divergence. Sorry, can't get my words out today. This bearish divergence does kind of imply that if we don't break out of here, there will be more downside. So maybe more of a impulsive move up out of this price action, and then a back test will be better just to fade off that divergence there. Other than that, that's it. I think we've got everything. Give me a like, share, subscribe. Hope you enjoyed. Check back next week.